show me the Bible saying that in the text, then it gives it more credence, right? Gives it more. I'm really blanking on words tonight. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, but here's the trick: is what happens if they're actually taking a text from the Bible and they're saying something about that? They're drawing a conclusion from that, and you're not sure about what they're saying because now they are pulling a text for you. Now what do you do?
Tell them what you think it means.
Huh?
Tell them what you think it means.
Okay, you can tell them what you think it means, but they're still going to come back and say, "But I have this text."
We have different opinions.
Just say you're wrong. Okay.
And I was wrong. We'll listen to them.
All right.
You're wrong.
There's a couple different things that we can do. All right. If somebody is telling you something and they're actually pulling scripture and you're not really sure what to make of it, it might be something where you might be able to say, "This doesn't sound right," or it might be something that you're sitting there saying, "Well, I don't know." Because it's going to happen in your life that somebody's going to say something to you that's going to challenge the way you think about God. Okay? That's not always a bad thing. Okay?
Sometimes a good thing.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a good thing. Sometimes it's important for us to remember that we can't understand everything that there is to know about God. And sometimes God has to sit there and we might organize the way we think about God with this, deck of cards. And God might come through and say, "Whoop, time to rearrange." And so then He helps us rebuild. Okay? But there's a couple things that we can do when we hit these moments where somebody says something about the text that we're not sure of. Okay? And part of the reason that I'm saying this is because you might get to a translation, right? And that translation may say something that you're like, "Wait, my other translations don't say this that way. Why?" And that's an important question. Okay? So, one of the things we need to do is we need to ask this question right here. Does it match God's commands? Does what they're saying line up with the rest of the text? Okay? Remember what we said on Sunday? That sometimes we encounter these moments in the Bible where God has specifically said one thing throughout the text, and then there might be one part that looks like it contradicts, and yet what's happening is that God is specifically trying to say something right there to draw our attention to it. Okay? Because is God consistent? Does God change His mind? No. God does not change His mind. Well, sorry. God might change His mind, but His nature itself does not change. Okay? His commands are going to be the same. It's why Jesus is able to show up and say, "I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it." Yeah. All right? So, does it match God's commands? All right? If somebody's showing you some kind of scripture, but it's not lining up with what their interpretation of it or where they're going with it is not lining up with God's commands, it's not good to follow. All right? Next. The next question we have to ask is the translation itself reliable? Okay? If somebody comes to you and starts drawing these crazy conclusions and you're asking them, "Well, where are you getting this passage?" and they show you the message, okay, we need to put brakes on. The message has good value, okay? But we also have to understand that the message is strongly paraphrased, okay? And so we need to just understand that we need to be careful about some of the conclusions that we draw from when we read from the message, all right? Again, I'm not saying it's bad, because what did we say about that spectrum of translations, that line? There's word for word, and then there's
Thought for thought.
thought for thought, right? All right. So, yeah, we've got word for word and thought for thought, and Eugene Peterson, the guy that translated the Message, is not so much concerned about word for word. He's really going all out, thought for thought. Okay? So yeah, is the translation reliable? It's a question that we have to ask. Now, are you guys Greek or Hebrew or, biblical culture scholars? No, I'm not either. Okay? I know a little bit about this stuff because I studied it, but there's people out there that have spent their life dedicated to studying these cultures and literatures and everything else. Okay? So sometimes I might have questions about what's going on. And if I do, then I'm going to consult with somebody that knows it better. Okay? And so if you guys get to that point where you're asking, is this translation reliable? Ask. Find somebody that knows the text, that has spent their life dedicated to it, and ask. And there's a big difference between somebody that just studies it and somebody that lives it. Okay? And the difference is that somebody that just studies it, that's all that they do. They don't have any active church life. They don't actually live like Christ. They just study this stuff. And so if you're going to talk to somebody about this, find somebody that is actively living the life of Christ in their walk, in their day-to-day. All right? And the next thing we need to ask is what has been the church's interpretation of that passage throughout history? Because that's an important thing to understand. It's important to understand that God, again, is walking us through this process with his own word. All right? And so it's not just a matter of something new every single time. There are different applications that we can take to the text. But the original intent is going to stay the same because that's what the original author intended. Okay? It's not like he intends something different throughout history. The application is different, but the intent is still the same. All right? So, moving on into, for this new topic, works versus faith. Now, we were talking during our church history class about works and faith and how the churches throughout history kind of define these actions. What do you guys remember about what we discussed on works versus faith?
They're both.
Huh?
They're both.
Okay. We'll put that over here. Okay, what else? You can tell me something about what you know, or something about what we discussed during our church history class.
I think I read about it.
Right. Again, you can tell me either or, okay? Something that you know about works versus faith.
They got some.
No, I don't.
What do you got, Rihanna?
Nothing.
Come on.
Deja, why'd you get some? There's nothing.
No, go ahead and say it.
No, I don't. No.
If you're wrong, then no one can make fun of
No.
you. I'm like, faith is
I
what
think
you
she said
believe.
Deeds.
feet.
Okay. Yeah. We actually, I'm going to put that over here because, if you guys remember, one of the things that we talked about when works, or this conversation, this argument between works versus faith consistently came up in the church history, deeds was something, work was something that came up because there were different churches, different groups that would sit there and argue that you needed to do certain things to be saved. Okay? And that's kind of the real question that comes up with this right here is it works that saves you or is it faith that saves you? Okay?
Yes.
I had a teacher that believed that. She said that she believed that if you were like a good person and that you did good things, that you could go to heaven without being saved.
Okay.
And yeah, she was
Okay. Anything else? Nice job, David.
Not your head.
All right. Well, to make sure that we don't miss out, I want you guys for next week to find verses that talk about the importance of work, actually doing stuff, and then the importance of faith, of believing. All right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Because I don't remember who said it at this point, but yes, both are important, but why? Javen? Or you said that. Okay. Yeah, both are important, but the question becomes why. All right. Again, the argument that's occurred, in the past with the church is this question of, do works save you, or does faith save you? And this was a question that consistently came up. If you guys remember, when Martin Luther was breaking from the Catholic Church, it was because of all these things that were coming up with penance and I can't remember the indulgence. There you go. Good job. Yeah. Yeah. There was
95 theses.
Okay. Yes, 95 theses. Yes. Okay. So deeds that save, and I'm gonna put that over here. Indulgences and penance. Okay. And there was a difference, right? Because penance was something where they would say, okay, well, you've messed up, you need to do this specific act to erase that sin, right? And indulgence was something where you would actually sit there and you would pay the church money, and then your sin would be forgiven. All right? And so there's a difference between these two, but they still work the same. And so Martin Luther came back and argued that it is faith alone that saves us. And so Martin Luther would sit there and say, works don't matter. It's faith that saves. Okay? But are works important?
Yes.
Yes, we already said that both are important. So it's going to be this question of how do we reconcile the fact that works are necessary, but we've already had this discussion on several times. Like Brianna was just saying, her teacher sat there and believed that if she did enough good works, that would save her. Is that the case? No. Good works alone don't save.
You gotta be holy.
There you go. All right. So this is why we have to understand this balance that they're both important. Okay? Because it's this debate that goes back and forth. I'm not sure if it's really that big of a debate anymore, but it's still good to know. All right. So next week come with scriptures that support that. That didn't work. Here we go. Okay.
Ken, are you cooking up in here?
What?
Are you cooking?
Hot? Yes. Hot. Okay. All right. So. Okay. Friday. If you can be there at 5, be there at 5. If not, I already said 6, so be there at 6. Saturday we've got the garage. That's okay.
Why not, Holly?
Because your baseball game and then.
You don't have to go to my baseball game.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Regardless, the garage sale's from 8 to 12 on Saturday. And then we've got the youth rally on Sunday afternoon. Also, May calendar's up. It should be posting to Instagram and Facebook either today or tomorrow. But there's a printed copy out there in the lobby as well. So, all right. Love you guys. Think you're all awesome.
Are we playing the game again?
Yes, we can play the game again.
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm skipping my baseball game to come work.
Our band has a concert.
Okay.
It's at 6.
Okay.
Guess what, Ted?
What?
Let me make it.
It's not?
Good job.
So that means you don't need surgery.
That's not who we
I don't know.
That's good.
Oh,
Okay, I'm only gonna do in person, so I'm not gonna do your legs.
May have not known where that thing is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can do it.
Look at it.
Yeah, that's
mine.
tried to redo your
This one
eyebrows.
says right here.
Oh, I tried
It's
to
almost like I
do
said it was
Yes.
mine.
We're gonna do this again.
I didn't know that.
That's my other problem.
Oh, there it
I'm
is.
actually pretty proud of my Ted.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
You got the easiest one. I like my 8-inch.
Honestly, you could
Oh,
have
I
just.
Yeah,
should've
that's
done
a
it.
sir.
I gave mine to
If
you.
I were you, I'd be
Oh,
one
that
up
was
to me.
such a
Hey, it looks like your basketball.
Oh.
Oh, yours too.
Ah.
It's
Oh,
okay.
that
It's like the
And then like the next verse is like,
Yes.
It's like a honestly, cool.
Comment down.
If I were you,